Welcome, everyone, to our voice series brought to you by SohoMuse. We are so excited to introduce our panel on behalf of the Women's Empowerment Month. And we're honored to be speaking with some of the most influential women in media. And I just want to thank all of you so much for your time, for your energy, for being here with us today to share your insight and just really for us to have a wonderful open dialogue in a very safe environment. So what I would love to do is if we can start off by introducing all of you. So I'll say your name and just introducing what you do. And then if you guys can just elaborate further about your field and kind of saying how you're feeling today and what you guys do, and that would be great. So if we start off with Miss Sarita Patel, who is an unbelievable studio executive and producer, Miss Sarita, and a dear friend and work colleague. So lovely to have you.
Thanks, Consuelo. I'm so happy to be here. I'm Sarita Patel, and I started a company with my partner Ardees Rabang called Madmana Studios, and it is a heart-based entertainment studio that provides support to creatives from the beginning to the end. One of the things that we really noticed in our collectively, I think, 40 years at Lucasfilm, Ardees, where we supported the director and the producer of Lucasfilm, is that everybody needs support and assistance. And when you have a leader and an organization that is completely supported in service to a vision, to an outcome that really involves the success of every single person, the inevitable consequence is financial success. And we really saw a void out there for the creatives collectively that didn't even know they had access to this kind of support. So when we set about doing this, it was really important to articulate that also comes with an expense that isn't usually factored into a budget. And so this entertainment studio really just came about because we saw a void in supporting the health and well-being of creatives, which are such a necessary component in what we're reimagining today in the workplace. So I'm proud to say that we've started Madmana, and that's what we're doing.
Thank you, Sarita, so much. And Nicky Smith, who is an Emmy Award-winning costume designer and fashion designer, and in Miami and looking fabulous. Tell yourself.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I'm actually Emmy nominated, on my way to get an Emmy, but right now Emmy nominated. And I've had the pleasure on working on such shows as The Americans, Pose, and I started a organization called ROC, which stands for Raising Our Collective Knowledge. And ROC is an organization where we aim to educate young BIPOC students in the arts, in fashion, in styling, just to let them know what their opportunities are, that they are welcomed in this space of entertainment, in the space of arts, and we want to have diversity, we want to have their voices, and we want to let them know that there's a whole world out here that is waiting for them, and just give them access to mentors and people who can help them get to the next level. I'm also part of an initiative in my union, Local USA 829, to create a costume industry standards, just because costumes is normally the industry of women and gay men, let's be honest, and we're marginalized voices. And what we want to do is give fellow costume designers a platform where they can come and voice their concerns, where we can work together to streamline what our focuses are as an industry and really create change and unity and, of course, equity.
Thank you so much. And you will be getting that Emmy. See, I'm putting it out there. That's really Miss Judy Kang, who has performed at our November launch of our SohoMuse event and also performed in our Save series. I mean, truly one of the most talented musicians, name dropping that she has and does work with Miss Lady Gaga. So such an honor to have you. Can you tell us more about you?
Yes, thank you so much for the introduction. Really wonderful to be here with all of you today. I'm just looking forward to our conversation. And yes, so I am a violinist. I began playing violin since about age 4. And I also started to get into improvising and collaborating with other artists during school. And I think that kind of led me to performing with Lady Gaga eventually, just having branched out of the classical world, which is what I started with. And I also play other instruments. I am a producer as well. I love, as I said, collaborating with artists. So that is something that I continue to do and get inspired by. And I'm also very much into expressing through words as well. That's what I found even just more in the recent past. So I am very interested in filmmaking as well. So that is something that I'm inspiring to. And I also like to dabble into acting. So a little bit of a wannabe actor. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
A multifaceted and talented woman that you are. Yes, thank you. Sonia Bhalla, who is a fantastic film and television director and writer. Welcome. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much, Consuelo, for putting together like this amazing group of women. I'm totally honored to be amongst such brilliant company. And it's so funny. I think of that show. Do you remember that show with like all the squares? And they would be
Hollywood
like,
Squares.
Yeah, Hollywood Squares. I should know that name. Anyways, this is kind of fun like that. So thank you for that introduction. I have been in the industry since I graduated from college and walked away from law school after being on a tram ride in Universal Studios and saying, I want to do what those people do because they look a lot happier than my colleagues in law school. So I said bye-bye and started as a PA. I worked my way up the past 2 decades. For the first 2 decades, I worked as an assistant director in the Directors Guild with directors including Ron Howard, Jason Reitman, Paul Thomas Anderson, fabulous visionaries. The women were lacking, but that's all changing now. And I have been writing along the way, and I just started directing and have a few projects that I have written that we're taking to market as we speak. So fingers crossed. And just really profoundly excited for this. I don't want to say moment because it's a movement and it's a wave that's just rippling out and it's going to continue to get bigger and bigger. I mean, equality, even female and male, like that's our world, and then we have all these different flavors and colors, and that is our world. That's our prism. That's true in real life. And to finally see the expression of storytelling, in so many different forms, finally being even like, I don't even want to say allowed, but it is almost like, okay, now we're in that realm where these are valid voices, which we always have been, but we're always disregarded for so long. And so it's super exciting. And I'm excited to hear what everyone has to say about all these amazing questions Consuelo has put together. So yeah, here we go. Thank you.
With us. Christina Papagjika, who is not only a very dear friend, and I love her dearly, she is a Tony and Olivia award-winning producer of Broadway and film, and she actually had a premiere last night, and I'm so proud of her, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to join all of you and see some familiar faces, my friend Judy, and I'll do my best not to fangirl out meeting downtown Julie Brown. But it's so great to be joining all of you Women's History Month and thinking more about where the conversation is and where the conversation is going. And that's something that I've always been really interested in my career. I was really fortunate early on in my life to work for some really prolific producers, people like Mel Brooks and the likes, and worked on a variety of productions and eventually started my own production company. So some of my titles include Lee Daniels' The Butler was the first film that I produced, Kinky Boots on Broadway and around the world, and a variety of others. But for me, my interest is in partnering commercially viable projects with stories that help to craft and shape the narrative moving forward. And I think we have such a unique opportunity, as we all know. I mean, storytelling is as old as time. It's a tradition that's as old as time, and we do it in a variety of different ways and different platforms, whether it be through the written word or film or music, and we can learn. We learn through art and entertainment. And I think it's a really beautiful and important way that we can reach the masses and start to think about how we can better connect with each other, how we can better understand each other, and have a better world all the way around, not just with women's empowerment, which is incredibly important, you know, and Consuelo can attest, because I can get on my soapbox about the patriarchy and misogyny. And so that's incredibly important. But there are a lot of topics, and I know we're going to be talking about some of them here today, but 2020 was a particularly profound year in so many ways. And as trying as it was for many in a lot of ways, it was also really inspirational, because I think it pointed and highlighted a lot of things that we can be talking about and working on moving forward. So very happy to be joining all of you.
Thank you, love, so much. Ardees Rabang, I have to share, is family to me and to my sisters. She was the glue, basically, that held my father and my sister. She worked side by side with him for many, many years. She has been instrumental, just person in my life. And I'm so proud of everything that you've done and all your extraordinary accomplishments as a producer, as just now starting your own studio, which is so fantastic. And Ardees, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Consuelo. I love you. You know that. And it's so wonderful to be with all you women. As Consuelo said, I started out in production right out of college. Her father was my mentor for over 16 years and beyond. I mean, we still call each other, shoot each other emails and texts till this day. And so that's kind of why Sarita and I got together and created Manmana Studios, a heart-centered entertainment studio, because we really saw what was missing was that nurturing, that divine feminine, that mothering of creatives. Because that's, you know, they would, by default, creatives end up doing things that they don't really want to do because they're constrained, right? So during COVID, we really looked at like what's missing, what worked at Lucasfilm, what we could improve on. Because being there, I was there for over 16 years, actually physically on Skywalker Ranch for over 19 years. Because when I left Lucasfilm, I actually went to help run Brad Bird's office. And then after we released Tomorrowland, I looked around and said, you know what? I really want to help women and people of color in this industry because we're just not mentored the same way. We're not promoted the same way. And really just wanted to be able to give access to the entertainment industry. And one of the things I told Consuelo, because Consuelo and Manmana have a joint venture, and Sarita was important to me, is that we have a development fund. I am super tired of this whole starving artist, starving writer model. I mean, we know we can't get shows or movies greenlit without them. And here we are like begging people we love, our connections, like, can you do this for us? I don't have money yet, but when I do, then we can pay you. Like, F that. Let's have the money up front. And also it's important to me for the stories to be diverse. And I've been like going around with the Filipino community, the Asian community, and anyone I have access to, like, our stories won't be told unless we have the money.
Right.
So let's do this. Let's come together and really like have our own funds, have our own way of like green lighting things. Cause you know how it is now, it's they think they know diverse stories. Some break that barrier, but it's still a little paint by numbers. It's like, oh, okay, you have an Asian character or you have a Black character, but you didn't do anything with them. It was just to make the screen look diverse. So let's change that. So that's what Sarita and I have been doing this whole time during the pandemic. Like, okay, just flip the industry on its ears. Let's see what we can do.
And you are doing that.
Yes.
Woman on Fire. And last but not least, but not even the closest to being not the least, Miss the one and only Downtown Julie Brown. Oh, yes. And I have a good Sasha, yes. For anyone who doesn't know, and I'm sure you all do know, but this wonderful actress, Sirius FM DJ, MTV VJ, the one and only, oh yes, and her backdrop is so ridiculous that could I be transported, please? She's in Italy, and I will let her talk about where she is if she wants to or not. Thank you so much for joining us. It is an honor, my friend.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to meet all of you ladies. It's such a pleasure to see your faces. It's so much sweeter than Googling you all, that's for sure. I'm Downtown Julie Brown. Let's start from how I got there. My story goes way back to England, but I am the first British import into the MTV house, also first woman of color to be on the network. I feel very fortunate actually to have been included in an environment that, because MTV was so different at the time, it was moving mountains, in the business for everything, for music and its artists, and also of course for movies and sports. It intermingled everything. And I was fortunate enough that on the floor, it was a mix of women, of all kinds of different people, men, gay, straight, whatever. And so I feel lucky that I have been surrounded by that, because it has nurtured my soul into me being who I am today. And when I opened up this speech, I said, being the first woman of color to be the British import on MTV, at that first moment, it wasn't, I didn't even think about it. It wasn't something that I gave any sort of like consciousness to. But as the decades have gone on, of course, you see what goes on in the business, and every day I feel luckier and luckier and luckier and luckier that I got to be on the mic in the first place, so young in my career. And I'm being blessed. And I have to say, meeting Consuelo has opened up other doors, like being on platforms such as this, where I've never got to actually have an experience and be able to hear other ladies' stories, especially in the business, because I'm always on the other side getting paid to, hey, I'm paying you to do this, just say it, get the job done and go. So be able to be here with you ladies and share experiences and hear is such a massive support bubble for me. So I'm very, very honored to be here and can't wait to get this show on the road. And Christina, I've got some kinky boots for you.
Oh, I love them. Fabulous. I wouldn't expect any less of you.
And across the board. So good.
Good. I have chills everywhere. Sorry to be female and cheesy, but just saying.
I love it.
So good.
Yes.
Thank you so much, all of you. And I welcome our audience to please send questions for our amazing panelists, because we will be doing a Q&A. So I want you guys to feel very included. We're all here together. And I'm going to start off with asking some wonderful questions. And thank you all for your amazing intros. And again, just for your hearts, for being here with us today. My God, like really, if you could see the hairs on my arms, it's ridiculous. Okay. Question.
Well, I've got hair everywhere. It's COVID-19.
What were the most eye-opening realizations that you experienced personally during COVID? And what are the biggest lessons will you take away from that experience? And I will start that with Miss Sonia.
That's an excellent question. And it's interesting. I will say this. The idea of quarantine was not new to me. And I hadn't shared this really prior. I was quarantined with with tuberculosis. So it's kind of like, whoever thought I would ever be quarantined twice in my life. So having gone through all of that, and that was about 10 years ago, and seeing the changes, profound changes that came out of that. And I was in the hospital for 11 days, and it was a whole lung thing. You know, and the lung spiritually has to do with transparency and grief and letting go of a lot of what's not working. So I kind of went through that whole process, and having been quarantined when the world was not quarantined was very different. But the biggest takeaway I took then, which holds true to now, is the healing nature, of Mother Nature, of our Earth. I always used to take walks in Santa Monica, and I live very close to the promenade. If anyone knows, it's like a mall close to the beach, and I would walk to my gym, and then, you know, on the way back, buy a shirt or buy, you know, something, and come home. And with the first instance of being through this lung situation in a quarantine, I could only walk right, which was through nature. And that became very, very healing for me and completely changed my life and my perception of so much. And that when this happened, because I was waiting for a catalyst to see what is going to bring our world together as it needs to be. You know, I feel like Mother Earth has provided us with everything. You know, the oceans, the mountains, the air, the food, and boundaries are man-made. And this is our playground for everybody. And I was like, when are people going to wake up and get this, you know, stop the mass consumption, the materialization of everything, and really hone in on what's important in life? You know, what is those relationships? What is the laughter? Where is the joy? Like, when is that going to happen? And then when COVID started to happen, I was like, oh, I think I see what's going to happen here. So it's been rather fascinating to watch, almost from an outsider, having kind of been there before, but not everyone, you know, the whole world experiencing this. So that was, you know, obviously a new experience. And for me, you know, it's so much that I don't want to take up all that time, but I think the biggest takeaway is adaptability, resilience, to know that we're much stronger than we ever think we are, to understand that our air is shared, it's global, and that I think has metaphorically means a lot more than just that. And that really, when the world comes together and people come together, things happen so quickly and for the better. And, you know, appreciate the silver linings, appreciate the moments, because life is fragile. And respect life, and it's going to respect you back. And respect one another's, and you're going to be respected back. Love life, the same. You know, you get what you put out. So that's what I learned.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm so sorry what you endured. And I too had, you know, I was in the hospital for on and off about 2.5 months, and it was really very challenging. And I agree with you. That was very much how I was trying to keep myself in the same mindset of just appreciating the silver lining, knowing that this time really was going to be unlike any others, and to try to take advantage and appreciate absolutely every moment of this. I don't think I did that to the full extent of what I wanted to be honest, but I'm appreciating it now, and I can really look at it with a different lens. So I so appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. Nicky, would love to hear your thoughts.
For me, the thing that I took away from the pandemic, first of all, I was shooting a TV show in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and we were seeing the news a lot differently than what everyone was getting in the States. So they shut down production. They like sent out an email like, we're done, everyone go home, which is kind of crazy, fleeing a country overnight and just packing all your stuff thinking I'm going to be here for another month. So when I came back to the States and I went back to New York, everyone was having like a great time on the street. I was just like, what is going on? And for me, it really came about taking notice of the unseen, whether it's people, whether it's connections, whether it's the people who do things that we don't think about. The pandemic really highlighted that. And it really highlighted the things that we take for granted. My whole industry shut down and no one knew what was going to happen with entertainment, with TV, theater, like completely shut down. And some of it still is shut down in theater and opera. And there is a whole ecosystem that we don't see, that we take for granted, that things just happen and they just occur. And watching the ecosystem completely shut down, I think it highlighted how much we're unaware of stuff. No one thinks about healthcare workers. Nobody thinks about the grocery store clerks. Nobody thinks about the people who push the racks of clothes that make your favorite TV show. Nobody thinks about this whole world. And the one thing that I was glad to see in the pandemic, that these people were finally acknowledged, and still albeit taken for granted, but they finally had someone cheering for them, someone saying, oh my gosh, without you, we can't have this. Without simple things of theater, like Midtown New York is quiet, and that's a very rare thing. And without, our grocery store clerks, we're not getting our food. And it just really highlighted the importance of looking beyond ourselves and the importance of realizing that even in our little world, there's so much that we take for granted. There's so much that we don't see. And I'm glad that the pandemic also brought attention to the unseen things of the atrocities that happen to queer people, that happen to BIPOC people in this country. These are all things that needed to be amplified. And unfortunately, yes, it happened in a pandemic, but thankfully, many of us are aware that we can take this moment and this momentum and really create change and really highlight and elevate the people and the things that are unseen. So despite all that, I'm really glad that we are here as a group and that we're going to talk about some really important issues.
Thank you so much, Nicky. So true. Judy, would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so I think just to reiterate everything that Nicky and Sonia said, I mean, it's definitely the fact that I think we go day to day doing our things, just kind of like living life and being distracted almost by the external, like just working and, just making money and trying to pay the bills and just kind of taking for granted all of these things that are out of our control, really. Like, I feel like before the pandemic, there's a sense of like, we have expectations. We know that what's going to happen tomorrow. We see how we plan out things, and suddenly our plans just have to like crash down and completely, just for everyone, it's a different situation. But I think on a personal level, it was interesting because I actually kind of embraced the quarantine because I personally like to kind of be in my own space. So it was not something that was completely like a different thing at the time. And so I took it as like, just approaching it with going inward more. Like I'm generally a thinker, but I think I really just felt like more than just like my mind, it was, there was just a lot of things that just even reflecting on things and in the past, and just kind of being able to have that time and space and just like being in my own, I was able to kind of address things and actually find a sense of like, just realizations. And I feel like this was a great time for just kind of like having different perspective on that and how it also relates to people around me and just like my relationships with people and even in the business sense. I feel like, I just like felt like networking was something that was in a sense always challenging, and I still feel I'm still in the process. I think that like when you're still in the midst of things, like you're still, just digesting and kind of like still in the moment. I think that also just being more present in the moment, that's something that has also just been something that I've appreciated doing, is like not really being as much as I reflected and I looked to the future, I was also just kind of taking it day by day and like allowing life to just kind of lead me a little bit more, and not feel like I needed to know what tomorrow was going to bring. And in that sense, there is a comfort, because it's like right now, everything has proven to be where you make plans, but you just really don't always know what's going to happen. And there is something that's very, can be scary, but also very comforting in that. And I embrace that. So I think just moving forward, I'm shifting like my perspective on just things that occur and how to approach them, and how to react to them. And also just in my interactions, just being very much more grateful with having that connection again, like the real sort of time that I get to spend with people in person, and just have collectively experienced this. There's so much more that's connected us, I think, at this point, and that we can really relate on and just empathize with each other. And I want to believe that has been a change in the good sense for all of us. And yeah, so I feel like there's definitely a lot of unknowns, but I think it's sort of shifted like a more sort of optimistic sense of renewal, and having this time to just kind of allow ourselves to just like, just have like almost a rebirth in a sense. And that's like not limited to even just ourselves, but I think in our passions and our creativity, I feel like there's a renewal in that. And it's, I think there's a lot more, there's a lot less limitations, because I think with having everything have happened within our own careers, I almost feel like there's going to be more opportunities that we could create outside of it, because even during this time, I'm sure there's like, we have all, found or thought of other things and in other ways, even within our what we do, but maybe even just completely separate from that, and just kind of discovering new things about ourselves, or new passions, or just learning something new. So I feel like there's just so much more almost beyond, which is, I think, wonderful. So,
yeah. No, I agree. I think that we've all learned to relinquish control, right? Because everything was so out of control, right? That you have to start operating and believing, and the pace of everything slows down, right? And you have to look at things in a very, very different lens than I think that we have done before. So I totally see that. Christina, love, what was the biggest challenge your business faced due to COVID-19 pandemic?
I was, it's interesting because I work in a variety of different ways, right? So I'm a producer on Broadway, but the majority of my business these days is film and television. So I was very fortunate. While Broadway had shut down, I was very lucky, because I had film and television projects that had already been shot, that were edited, that were ready to go at a time when, content is now incredibly, it's very high demand, higher demands than we've seen perhaps ever. So I was very fortunate in that, even though we had a couple of releases that were expected to go, in the spring and summer of 2020, the worst thing that happened for my business is that our releases got pushed back a little bit, right? So we went through that first couple of months of, okay, everybody, the world stopped, and what's going to happen, and let's assess, and let's figure out what's going on. But very quickly, within a few months, distributors were looking for content, and our content was ready to go. So I was really fortunate from that perspective. And we're talking about, recognizing the silver linings, and there are so many, and it's recognizing how blessed we are in so many ways, big and small. And I certainly have been, and I'm so grateful for that. At the same time, you see Broadway suffering, and it is truly one of the last industries that will come back. Just by nature of the business model, with film and television, we can reach the masses through digital content, right? And all of these platforms. But, theater is a really unique business. And, in New York, we need tourism to support Broadway. You're sitting within close proximity to each other. And the business model for Broadway, which is sort of a whole nother webinar and conversation, but it really does need an overhaul, because we're in a situation where the shows are expensive to run. You need to be running it, depending on the show, sort of 50, 60, 70% capacity, just be paying your weekly operating budgets. So, you can't have, in a pandemic, even with masks and social distancing, you really can't run theater properly, or in a way that it makes any sense from an economic perspective. So then you have this incredible pool of amazingly talented people who have dedicated their lives to their craft, who have given up everything to spend their days and nights and weekends in studios and rehearsing and practicing. And, if they were fortunate, attending conservatory programs. And, it's really devastating to see that. And, frankly, the government didn't do enough to help the theater industry and artists. And what they did was way too late, too little too late. So it's really unfortunate. Now, there were a lot of programs like Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS, things like that there were a lot of programs that did a lot of fundraising, and there were a lot of generous people that did what they could. And at the end of the day, especially on Broadway, you have this amazing group of people who are just, that persevere. However, we should never rely on that. It's unacceptable to say, well, these people will persevere, so they'll figure it out. That's not okay. It was a challenging year in a lot of ways, but it would have been nice to see more support for the Broadway community. Again, I was very fortunate, but, it's heartbreaking to see so many of my colleagues and friends on the Broadway side of the business. This last year has been a challenge for those people. So, yeah.
It really has. Yes, Nicky, of course.
I just want to piggyback on what Christina said. If you guys do not know Be an Arts Hero, please look it up. It is an initiative started by Broadway artists. I myself have a master's in theatrical costume design. I've done Broadway, the Met. Like, that is my base. That is my foundation. And it is an issue that is so dear to my heart. Please look up Be an Arts Hero and just educate yourself on the amount of economical input that theater and the arts have actually given to our economy. It's more than construction. It's more than so many other industries that the government was so quick to bail out. And I just want to, again, piggyback off what Christina said. It is an organization that just highlights how important the arts are. And it's a sector that was really forgotten in the pandemic. So I just had to put that in there.
So much. And we will continue to keep posting about that through the chat, so people can go to that for sure. Sarita, would love to hear your thoughts.
So I've got a couple of things, but so I spent the last 24 years having my office in somebody's home. And so there were children, there were dogs, there were construction projects, there was the phone ringing, there was the doorbell ringing. I mean, it was like 24/7 nonstop running a business, but also in a home, right? And I remember early on, in the 90s, when I went into the bathroom and I was just like, the hair was standing on top of my head, not knowing what was a priority and what wasn't. And I looked in the mirror and I said, there are kids growing up in this house, and they're either going to remember their home as their home or a place where they were in line after business.
She's going to get a dog.
The dog, that's so cute.
Or the dog.
All animals are welcome, by the way.
So I share this because early on I decided there's got to be a way that I can contribute to the well-being of this family, as well as, address business needs. And that became a juggle and a dance that was my priority. So if I was ever confused, it defaulted to the children. And I share that because it was a juggle, but one that I ended up loving and adoring and needing to infuse laughter and rule breaking and joy and problem solving on multiple levels. And so when the pandemic hit for me, and I really watched people struggling with working from home, not knowing if they even liked their spouse, realizing that they didn't really have relationships with their kids, or if they did, it was strained. And this wasn't good, bad, or anything. It was a noticing of something that I was noticing way before in isolation. So what the pandemic did for me was it kind of just like I was like, ready, let's go. I just finished a course. I know how to do this. And I want to help people manage this because it's not temporary. It's actually a time that we can say, this is going to be really hard. You're not going to fix your relationships overnight. You're not going to figure out how to plug in all these computers and things in a space that is beautiful and have everything work. It was like, you really find out how much support you need from other people, and that you can lose your shit because you're a human being, without notice.
Yeah.
What was that?
Yes. So the pandemic was just sort of a aha, I got this, and I have the ability to be in service to people who are just seeing this for the first time. And it has nothing to do with I know better than anyone. It just meant we all have a state of genius that we can actually give care willingly and caringly to improve the lives of other people. And I wanted to share that as I saw mental illness growing over the past 15 years. And just, I wanted to give people permission to be vulnerable for real. To say, I'm going to help you and I'm not going to judge you. And it's not all about money. Like the money will work itself out, but not if you're sick or if you can't get up. So like, let's take care of our well-being. And for me, it was like, it's not just a 3-day workshop. It has been my life being in service to people. So the pandemic actually just confirmed an assumption that I had, which was if we are in service to each other and ourselves, then we actually have a chance at helping humanity rise.
So true. Thank you so much. Miss Downtown Julie Brown, how did you, and just curious, because from where you are and what you're doing now, how did you pivot, or did you need to pivot your business with the new realities of COVID?
Well, yeah, I mean, the poop hit the fan, and it was for everybody. You can hope for stability, but then it's best to be prepared for the opposite, which is, I've always said, is just but not being able to do either of those two things, because this COVID-19 just slapped us all around the face, and it really wasn't giving us a chance to get anything ready. There wasn't pack a suitcase, or, well, Nicky, I know you did. You had to get out and run. But I got stuck in Italy, which is where I am. And every time I see people, they go, oh my gosh, what a wonderful time you're having. You're in Italy. And I have to say, I have a little place in a little piece of heaven. And I'm truly grateful that I'm here going through this. It's not just the pandemic, it's been an array of things, the political world, which has just been so energy draining, the fear that is in the hearts of everybody amongst this whole COVID-19 mess, and just not being able to be there for somebody when you want to. That whole block is off. I mean, I found myself to be, okay, just buckle down and do what you've got to do. So fortunate. I wasn't doing any TV shows. A lot of my friends that ended up out of work, my daughter lost her job. She just got married to a husband. They just moved to Florida, both with new jobs, and COVID hit and they both lost their jobs. They're in Florida all by themselves. They didn't even have a chance to make any relationships with anybody there because it literally happened, 2 months while they were there. And I'm stuck over here. So that panic of that, but it also distanced me from a lot of the reality, especially the reality that's going on in America. I mean, watching it all from a distance has made me realize that, one, I don't do enough for anybody. And I'm certainly fixing that. But just, I've got a group of friends, a group of women friends, they call them the fabulous friends. And since day one of this COVID-19 pandemic, they started a chat chain, a WhatsApp chat chain. So everybody could just get together on WhatsApp and just go through it. And now it's been a year. I scroll through and I see where we started and where we are now. And the one thing that hasn't changed, it is the fact that we all care so much about what's going on. And we care for our lady friends who, may not be in the same boat as we're in. I mean, I'm fortunate. I do a radio show. So guess what, folks? I'm still in work because it's the one job that you can do from anywhere. And so, but I've also been stuck in Italy now, and this is my third full lockdown in the space of a year. And when I say full lockdown, it's not, nothing is open in our little villages around the lake. And also we don't have the ability to go to a shopping mall and get everything you need because of these little towns. Everything is spread all over the place. So there's things we can't even get because they're across, just around the corner and across the lake, but we're not allowed to leave our little town area. We have police cars going up and down our street with the megaphone saying, everybody stay at home. And so it was a full-on panic for me. And it's as you said, it's all right to like freak out. And that's the one thing that I had to learn, is because I've always been the one on the camera that's kind of got to keep it together. And this taught me that, hey, it doesn't matter how many shiny shoes I've got. This is really effed up what's going on, and I'm scared and I'm tired, and it's hard to pretend you're having a party, doing what you do for a living, when there's no one around to help you do it. You're so used to your support system, from anyone, from the doorman that lets you into wherever you're filming, to the catering, to makeup, to the whole team that makes all of this that you think, is the best ever happen, has gone. And so guess what? You're by yourself, and the only way to get through it is to know it's loving what you do, staying strong in what you believe in. Of course, staying positive, not a good word to use at this time, but you know what I mean. It's best to be negative. But just be really grateful for what we have in our lives. And I don't want that to ever change. Even when this is over, and it will be over, certainly being grateful is the thing that is still holding dear to my heart during these times, and being thankful for everything that I have. I mean, the fact that I've got a job and so many haven't, it's not a fun thing to feel, because I feel bad. And I feel bad, but at the same time, it's just like, well, just remember to be there if somebody needs help. Like, I've had a lot of friends now that have come through to me on the radio that I've ended up doing interviews with, or promoting their new singles, or that's all I can do. So I'm thankful that I still have a mic. at least. And, the mic isn't for me to be heard. It's for me to let people know that I'm there for them. And that keeps me going. There you go. Ta-da.
Thank you, my love. And listen, this is what I love about doing this, because we're just sharing in our experiences, right? And the sad thing is that when people are quiet, right, and you live in your own little isolated world, you don't get a chance to hear the stories and reflect what's going on around the world, right? Yes, media does one thing, and this, just to be intimate and to be vulnerable and share these things is really important. It gives us a chance to kind of also say, oh my God, I'm not alone, and wow, that's really how I was feeling, right? So I think so much about the mental health issues that we've also, have been dealing with too, is just people really feeling alone and feeling isolated. I mean, just that has been actually my worst fear for my I'm so grateful that I have a beautiful husband, and I'm so grateful that I wasn't alone, but really that people were alone and not having, whether it's a parent or a friend or a sibling or someone who was there, just right.
Yeah.
So, and Julie, I'm so sorry about Italy. I have many friends. It's devastating. Lockdown. I pray that lifts fast. I do.
And just not being able to see people's smiles, or, in Italy, it's a big kissing world. You kiss 3 times on the cheek, you say hi, and just seeing, not being able to see people's faces. So it's really important to have your ears open right now, so you can hear what people are saying and to listen. I've always been a kind of thank you kind of girl, like I said earlier, from doorman to people that stick Post-it pads on my makeup mirror and stuff. I just the whole world, the entertainment world for me, getting groomed in the UK, I think made that possible for me. Getting groomed, I did it the old-fashioned BBC way, and it was just you wouldn't be here without everybody else that is part of this tier. So you remember that, little Miss Brown. But now, to go to a store and sit there and watch people working at the checkout counter, just getting things done, the guys that deliver stuff, because of course now we're all internet shopping, right? I need my Bounce divas. I haven't got any Bounce dryers here, so had to hit the internet for that. I normally bring a suitcase of stuff, with me to Italy, so I'm normally good to go, but I ran out of everything. Just the delivery guys, and just but it's also been an amazing time for creativity too. I know so many people that have started doing completely different things, like learning, to play. We have our lovely violin player there, but learning instruments or doing something that you haven't, trying to make yourself at least have a bit of a good time during a bad time. One of the things, because it's so quiet here, I got my husband, for some reason, I don't know why I didn't say a piano or maybe a recorder or something, but I made him buy me a drum kit, which and I think the logic behind that is just because I was so trapped. I didn't know what to do. All these feelings of feeling so lost and alone, and so many people losing their jobs, and some people not having anyone to be with. That there was something in me that wanted to be just really loud and freaking crazy. And I've got to say, it's really helped. And by the way, if anyone needs a drummer for a wedding or a birthday, I'm pretty good now.
Ardees.
Yes.
Question for you, and I have to share the story. So have there been, and I'm sure with your exceptional family that you have and women that have been around you, any stories of women who inspired you during the pandemic? And I want to share with you this amazing story of this woman in New Jersey. She just turned 110. Oh, yes. There are only 76 people in the United States, I would like for you to know, that are over that age. That's right.
Wow.
Now, this woman survived the Spanish flu, and then she got COVID. She got COVID in November, and she was sadly, she was in the hospital, and she was suffering from huge respiratory issues, and she made it through. This woman, I have to tell you, she drove until the age of 93. She walked until the age of 103, and she crocheted until the age of 105. And she actually donated her services to military people, to people just, less fortunate than herself. And I just wanted to share that because those kind of amazing women stories, right? Just so, Ardees, anyone in your world that has inspired you as a female?
Oh gosh, so many.
Besides me.
Yeah, besides Sarita and the wonderful women we have in Madmana. One of the things with the pandemic, I actually was tracking it before I came here because I have business partners in Hong Kong. And so they were telling me what was going on over there and in China. And this was in 2019, towards the end of 2019. And I was like, oh my God, if it comes here, we're screwed.
Mm-hmm.
We're just screwed. And Sarita and I we were producing a series with the NBA star Aaron Gordon and his mental skills training coach, Graham Betchart. During this time, we were filming all the way through to the NBA All-Star Weekend last year. And then the NBA shut down the country. And I was just like, okay, well, we have over 300 hours of footage. Can we finish this series without shooting anymore? I was watching my guy friends and I'm a huge sports fan. We were all freaking out because there's no live sports. We were just watching reruns. And I was like, this is a perfect time for this because it's about mental health and mental skills training. It targets kids to help them with anxiety. Like, this needs to get out, right? But of course, like, everything shut down, slowed down. And I was like, okay, you guys rework what we have, see if we can create 10-part series. So they did that. And then Sarita and I were just like, okay, we need to start the studio. We need to really support these creatives. We haven't had to even solicit anything. Everything's just come to us, and we have like great projects, and it's wonderful. But during this whole time, I did two things. I took on an abundant goddess coach, Layla French. I think she's on. And I studied the 12 universal laws. And she had designed it to be a 6-month course. I did it in 3. And it really, really helped me to help other people being in this space of like, what is the divine feminine? How do we radiate joy? It was things that I already knew intuitively, but having it in a program helped me, just like, oh, I knew this, but now it's like laid out for me, So Layla really helped me during this time. Also, my girlfriends from high school, there's 9 of us. I went to an all-girls Catholic school. Some of them I've known since grade school. Every year we take a trip, when obviously last year we couldn't. So those who felt comfortable, we did a whole glamping in our friend's backyard. We each had our own tent. We just hung out at her pool. But one of the things we did, the 9 of us, every week since quarantine, is get on Zoom. And we have our weekly Thursday, whoever can come. And it's really just helped us just get through this. We were like best friends before, but even more so now, because with technology, we can actually see each other, on screen. Whoever thought we were going to do that? I'm such a social person, so I miss the actual physical interaction with your friends. But a lot of my friends, even my Cal friends, because I went to Berkeley, will do a weekly Zoom on Sundays and check in and just kind of check in and see how people are doing. It's a little hard with my family because I've they're older. Technology is hard for them. So really, for me to see my parents, I have to go see my parents, you know, and which I would do. And my, at the beginning of this year, we've had a lot of loss. My grandfather passed away. He was 98 years old. He didn't die of COVID. He just went the way he lived his life. He was at the casino with my dad and my uncle. I mean, yeah, during COVID, but we're like, you know what? The casino makes grandpa happy, so okay. And he had his favorite meal. He asked my uncle to wheel him to his favorite machine, and he closed his eyes, and that was it. And then just recently, one of my aunts passed away. She was sick, complications through medication. It wasn't COVID either. And then I lost my puppy of over 13 years, 4 months Sunday. So there's been just this, everyone was saying 2020 was hard. I'm like, it's only March, and we've had 3 major deaths in our family, non-COVID related. And so, yeah, just being able, even like everyone's texting me or calling me on Zoom, or my girlfriends, we've always had a chat even before we did the Zoom. Yeah, all the women in my life have really helped me during this time.
So
I can't really just pinpoint one. I'm just saying, like, I think it's really, this time made us slow down and really think and be grateful, and also give us a moment to like pause and go, okay, let's stop recreating things. Let's collaborate. Like, which is one of the things when Consuelo reached out to me at the end of last year and said, hey, what are you doing? And I told her what Sarita and I were doing. We're like, okay, you know, this makes sense. We should work together. Like, work with the women and the people you love, right? And just appreciate. Yeah, if anything, this pandemic has shown me just to appreciate all your loved ones.
So true.
Things promised, right?
So we're going to just shift topics a little bit. And I just, again, I can't thank you enough for everyone sharing about, you know, what's happened and how everyone's dealt with COVID. And I'd really love to talk about and you know, and putting together this panel of all of you extraordinary, diverse individuals that you are. I would love for us to open up a conversation about stereotypes and what that's looked like or not looked like, you know. And some of you may say, well, that's never happened to me, but I just think it's so important that this is something that constantly needs to be talked about, and especially as we're in Women's Entrepreneurship Month. And I think we've come so far, and we have so much more to do and more to come. So Nicky, would love to open up this question to you. What kind of female-driven stereotypes have you experienced in the workplace, and how did you deal with them or have them shut down?
Well, for me, it's 2. It's being female, and it's also being a Black identifying woman. What my specialty is in costumes is I love doing period costume. I can do everything under the sun, but I really, really love period costumes. And there was a time, like, I want to say maybe 2018, 2019, when I was looking for a new job for a new TV show, and I would go on interviews, and people would assume, because I look the way I do, dreads, tattoos, piercings, that I didn't have experience in theatrical costume design. Mind you, I have a bachelor's of fine arts and I have a master's of fine arts in theatrical costume design and 20 plus years of experience. But because I look young and I was Black and I had a certain look, thank you, downtown Julie Brown, they would automatically assume that I was a stylist. And they would say things like, do you really know period? And I would look at them like, between the 2 of us, who has the master's degree? Like, who can teach college level courses? Yes, I do know period. Yes, I've worked at the Met Opera. Yes, I've worked in theater. And people just could not get over the idea that because I didn't look like the people they wanted to hire, that I didn't have the experience. And it would get to a point in interviews where I would just say, I have the experience. I've done the periods. I've done the work. Like, give me a chance. I can do this. And it just really taught me that if I want to step around these stereotypes, I need to be the person in charge. I need to be the person at the head of the department who says, we're going to do this. And I want to have a team that is diverse, that is queer friendly, that is BIPOC. I want to give the people that people look at and say, you don't deserve a chance. I want to give them a chance. So in the pandemic, I kind of stopped assisting and I got myself an agent. And now I'm putting myself up for lead design jobs because I don't want anyone else to have that same experience of someone belittling them because they look a certain way, or they don't have the period look, or because they're not dressed in the latest designer things, that they think, oh, you can't do a modern show because you're wearing Target clothes. Like, it doesn't matter how a person looks. We have to change this perception. And if they can do the work and they have the skills, give them a shot. And as a Black identifying woman, I really, really want to change that. So I'm the person at the head of the table now.
Love that.
Yes.
Yes.
You
Sonia.
deserved.
I want you to be my mom.
Right?
Done.
I love that, Nicky. And I so can I say so one more time? Relate. So my parents are first gen Indian from India. And well, actually, no, they would just be immigrants and I'm first gen. I still get confused, right? And it's funny. It's like, you know, we were raised in outside Philadelphia, primarily, you know, all Caucasian neighborhood. And that's a whole nother thing. But when I got started working as a PA, even before I joined the DGA, it was like what Julie was saying, like it wasn't conscious to me that I was different, because now I'm like, I was born in Chicago. I was raised outside Philly. Like, I'm me and I'm just like you guys, but we all have different experiences. Like, this is just a color. I mean, no big deal. So I was like 22, 23 and, you know, and working, my first film was with Al Pacino and, you know, just got up the ranks. And usually there was I would look around and notice like, gosh, there are not a lot of women on set, especially in the directing team. And, you know, as an assistant director, I did Die Hard New York and then The Grinch and, you know, really high profile projects, and still not many women, especially in production and on the floor in directing, and then not many people of color. And it always, you know, it's like, well, maybe it's ours, maybe it's, you know, it's trying to come up with like why. And then still I see myself like everybody else. But then the woman and the rank thing was the first kind of noticing as I started to direct commercials and even go in for interviews. They would be like, oh, are you hair makeup? Like, hair makeup team? And I'm like, no, I'm here to interview for directing. And like, oh, you sure you're not wardrobe? You know, you're not costumes? And I'm like, am I sure? I know what I'm here for. Like, what the heck? And so, you know, or talent, are you talent? I'm like, I'm production, you know, I'm like, this is what and like, I'll never forget this time I went to a commercial, I was directing and I pulled into the director's spot. I was so excited. Like, parking wasn't like 2 miles away. You know, I had to get in a van. I finally could roll right up. So I get up there and I'm like, hey, everyone, you know, what's going on? And there were like new kids around, new PAs, and like, oh, can we have to move your car. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure, here are my keys. I'm like, why do you have to move it? And like, what's for the director? You know, PAs like, actually, they said you have to move it. And I was like, okay, why? And so they're like, PAs are parking down there, you know, this is for the director. And I was like, oh, that's so funny because I am the director, you know, and like, oh my gosh. And it's like this perception, like just because you don't look this way or you don't act this way, it's like they can't get their mind around like, holy shit, she's the director. You're the first assistant director in charge of like a crew of 300 people, you know, and you have a vision and you know how to communicate. And of course, with the teams that you're regular with, you know, they got to know. But so that was interesting as a woman. Then as a woman of color, that was never really pointed out to me, except a few times where there were comments made like, if I was being introduced, they're like, she's Indian, not feather. Like, okay, all right, well, chalk it up to like someone being funny and like you just go funny along with it. And you know, you just like, what am I going to say to like all the guys? Like, that's inappropriate. You know, you just kind of laugh it off and just go with it. And then I think the one that stuck with me the most, and again, I think it's out of ignorance, and it wasn't out of, if people are educated, you know, and have these conversations, I think these things wouldn't happen. But I was on Up in the Air, and we were in prep, and I go to my desk, and right above my desk was a Post-it that said Chaiwala. Now, Chaiwala, and it was just the time Slumdog was out. So Chaiwala is the little kid, they're usually street kids who are not educated, who give you tea, the Chaiwala. And they thought it was really funny, you know, and it was like, okay, ha ha ha, I kind of went along with it. And then I remember like being back in the hotel room and thinking like, not only have I worked so hard to get to this position, you know, and be on this film and working my butt off. My grandmother in India went to like the Harvard of India. My mom's like an award-winning nuclear physicist. You know, my parents like established, and here it's like, they're calling me like the little kid who gets a T. And even though I was in a very important position as a second assistant director, it was like, you know, and they thought it was funny. And so it's like, you kind of go along with that, but it's like, there's a little hurt there, you know? And it's like, oh, but you can't say anything because you're part of this team and you're going forward, you know? So so it's things like that. And I think the most recent one was, we had a seminar on unconscious bias, which I didn't even know what that meant. And at the Directors Guild in the boardroom, which overlooks, you know, all of Hollywood, up Sunset Boulevard. We see pictures of, it's interesting, it used to be all men directors on the walls until we finally spoke up. All the women were like, there are female pictures that can be up here. So regardless, we're in the boardroom, we're having this conference on unconscious bias. And the guy who's giving it is like saying, okay, so the people we talk to, the groups are like, you're African-American, you're Caucasian, you're Latin, and then you're other. I'm like, you're calling us other in an unconscious bias conference. Like, this doesn't even get crazier. Like, and then, so fine, go along. But then everyone had to say their unconscious bias. And I couldn't believe that so many of my peers didn't see me like I saw them. Yeah. And I was like, holy shit, all along, like, I just feel like I'm one of y'all, but you all look at me different. Like, what?
You're the other.
Yeah. And I was like, that is so crazy. And then the last thing that really struck me is, you know, right before directing, I was observing on a set, which is kind of silly anyway, after having all this experience, but it's one of the hoops they make you do. So this director who's like 6'2", tatted up, piercings, you know, he's like sitting with me and he's like, you know, I can't even imagine how challenging it must be for you. And I'm like, this is cake in my mind. Like, I can run circles around you right now, okay? But so I was just like, well, yeah, how so? Like, what do you mean? He's like, well, not only are you a woman, but you're a woman of color and you're also really short. I was like, I wanted to say, have you seen my resume? Like, go to my IMDb, mister. Like, look at what I've done, you know? And I was like, but I just like, I just think it's just ignorance. You know, they just don't know any better, and maybe insecurity on their side. But so look, in the whole long gamut of it, of, you know, 20 some years of being a filmmaker and really working with some of the top in the industry and learning so much and really been supported. I have to say, like, 96% support. They are those instances which have stuck out, which may or may not be reflective of a bigger part. Obviously now we're saying perhaps it is. So I feel these conversations that we're having now are so important. And again, going back to the idea of storytelling, what Christina was saying, storytelling has been the dawn of ages. It was scribbled on the caves. You know, this is how we tell story. This is perception. This is knowledge. This is point of view. This is imagination. Everything is in storytelling. And even if you look at all like the religions, it's always been through the man's point of view. And even in Hollywood, oh my God, we have the power right now. Like, this is probably one of the biggest tools in the world right now. We all have it in our pockets. And every single person, decision maker in Hollywood, has a choice. Are you going to make responsible, impactful, uplifting, outside the box storytelling? Or are you going to do the same fear-driven, rote BS? Because that's what, quote unquote, makes money. You know, it's like this, everyone is going to have, they're going to be what? This is storytelling. We can educate, we can, you know, and it doesn't have to be dry. I mean, there's such beautiful films that like really open your eyes to a whole new world, you know, and they're so beautiful and poetic and fun. And it's like, I mean, I never saw me growing up, and I know now that's being like everyone's saying it, but on a screen. And there's a reason now that I was like, oh my gosh, now I know I love Benetton sweaters. And I think it was that ad. I was like, they kind of look like me. That's what look good on me, you know. And that could be me in that poster. So it's just like, you know, it's so important that somehow we really need Hollywood to not just talk the lip service, but really walk that line. And it's going to show in all the prosperity and abundance and all the jobs that are going to be coming out of it. Like, you know, for the ecosystem that Nicky was speaking of, it's ginormous. You know, everyone is going to make money from these words on paper, you know, all the way down to like, you know, transpo, craft service, the food that's delivered, the generator, I mean, everything. And then all the audience that's going to see it and like laugh and learn something new, or cry and learn something new, or just, you know, feel like they mean something. Like, it's just, they're important. Yeah, there's so much that we can do. And it's just like, get that old dinosaur Hollywood out. I'm done. Or at least have them open their minds a little bit if we can. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
or
Absolutely.
you know, you build it and they will come. Like, the great thing about everybody here is we've all done things so many times that we've made the mistakes that allow us to see how to do it better the next time, right? And you just keep refining the recipe until it's just right. And then there's a new thing. So we're all very used to that as just a regular course of action. And so we're building it right now. I mean, this panel that Consuelo has put together, you know, is so fun. You know, Sonia is just, everyone is their own talk show, for God's sakes.
The world today.
Like, can I just add to Sonia? When I went into entertainment, and I didn't go into thinking I was going to ever work in entertainment. You know, I went to Berkeley. I had a degree in political economy of industrial societies. There was like, entertainment was so far out of my mind because, one, I knew nobody who looked like me, had heard of nobody in my community going in that field. You know, I'm Filipino, so your parents are like, you're going to be a lawyer or a doctor or you get your MBA. That was it, right? And I accidentally got it. I mean, it was not my role, like, to get work at Lucasfilm, but somebody was looking out for me. I just wanted any job when I was graduating from Cal. And I didn't even know I was interviewing for production. I didn't even know what that was. I didn't even know who Consuelo's dad was. He was the producer. And when I found out, like, I was working in production and was telling my friends who were huge Star Wars fans that my boss was Rick McCallum, they were like, do you know who that is? That's a big deal. He's a producer. And I was like, yeah, but I still don't know what that is. And I was literally the only brown person on my floor, right? I was 22. I'm barely 5 feet tall. So, you know, they always have that kind of, I work hard, I'm quiet, I get the job done, right? So even when I moved over to Consuelo's dad's office 2 years after working there, he had told my previous boss, the production controller, that he really wanted me to move over because he saw like how hard I worked and how I could get things done. But he also told her, I don't think I could ever yell at her, which was huge because he did scare people, you know. And I can say after over 16 years with him, he never did yell at me. And but one of the things that was great about working with Rick was that he early on asked me what I wanted to do. And I realized in my first 2 years that I really loved production because I loved serving people. Serving the production. I loved trying to figure out things and fix things. And I loved that each day was different. So I looked at him and I said, you know what? I want to be like you. And he said, okay, great. I'm going to teach you everything I know. You're going to be on every call, every meeting, even when people didn't even know I was on the phone with them. Like a lot of times I would just be quietly on mute and he'd be on the phone with some big exec. And then he'd say, Ardees, you got that? And I'm like, yes. And then they would come on and I'm like, oh, Ardees, you're on. I'm like, yeah. And I think it really, my reputation kind of preceded me because I have a near photographic memory. So people knew if they said something to him and I was on,
Get it done.
It was going to get done. And also I would remember what was said. So, but one of the things I'll always be very grateful for your dad for is when I was first his assistant, I was still getting to learn everything about the office. And he would say, look, get everyone's name, number, company, because everyone will say they're my friend and I won't know who they are, you know? And I was like, okay. So I would always have to kind of remind him like, oh, that's so-and-so from this company, and, you know, but it was really early on. And so an agent was really snooty with me because she felt I should know who she was, and I didn't, right? And so he was in Australia setting up our production office. So I emailed him and I said, oh, so-and-so called and she says she's your friend. And I hope she really is your friend because she was not nice to me, right? And then he called immediately and he was like, honey, I don't care if it's the fucking president of the United States or whoever it is. No one talks to you that way. No one. And he goes, you have my permission. I want you to put them on speakerphone. And then he has the most colorful way of swearing. And he was saying like, I could say that. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, I can't say that. But it really showed to me he had my back because he refused to call her. And weeks later, she was a totally different person.
Wow.
You know, because he had said it out there like, no one can talk to you that way. Yeah, did I have run-ins throughout my career because I'm Filipino and 5 feet tall and look way younger than I really am? Yes, you know, so many times where people because I sound young on the phone, they're like, how old are you? And I'm like, 27. At the time I was like 27 or 28. And they go, oh, because you sound 12. I'm like, okay.
You took care.
What do you say to that, right?
Exactly.
Or, you know, people wouldn't take you seriously, but because my mentor, my boss did, like it commanded so much respect. Like people either got on board or they were out, you know?
I'm so happy he did that. And you deserve it. Of that, my friend. Many people don't have that. And I think to have that encouragement and support is everything.
And then I could even tell him too, because sometimes some people like actors or whoever were being inappropriate. So I would tell him and he like wouldn't stand for that. You know, I think we were, most of us, if we've been in the industry long, you kind of would laugh it off or put people in their place. But now they have all the, you know, with everything with the Me Too movement, you know.
Yeah.
It's great. But before, before you didn't want to be difficult. You just kind of was just like, had to have a thick skin and just kind of put people in their place and let them know you can't talk to me that way or you can't grab me, right?
Yeah, there's ways of doing it. I think we've all learned our lessons doing this business of, you know, having someone say something to you inappropriately or maybe touch you inappropriately and there's always, obviously the reaction has to be a way that they learn from it. Sometimes jumping right in the beginning of saying, for me, I always have to walk away and then I will really go away and think about it because of course, when it has happened, it's it hurts. Like and more so if it happens to me from another woman that actually speaks down to me because I'm not understanding or I'm not, you know, I that makes me sad, and I can cry from that, and I have to really walk away, and then I have to come back maybe after the job is done, you know, just do what you got to do. I'll do what I'm hired to do, but then after I will go up and I will definitely say, totally unappreciated, did not feel right. This could have been a great experience, and you made it very uncomfortable. I'm glad it worked out well and you got what you wanted. I've got what I wanted, right? And we're out of here. But I just don't forget. I can't forget that. But I don't put a lot of time into it. It's just I walk away from it. And then I go on to the next situation. You know, for me, I'm from a mixed marriage. My mum, people always come up to me and go, where are you from? I'm going, oh, you know, I'm from England. But there you go. Yeah, but where are you really from? I'm like, yeah, I'm really from England. I'm not lying. And then, yeah, but where are you from? Were you born in England? And I'm like, oh, was I born in England? Yeah, I was actually born in England too. And they go, no, but where? I'm like, oh, you want to know why I'm this color, really? That's what you want to really ask me. And oh, my dad's from Jamaica. He goes, oh, you're Jamaican. I'm like, well, kind of, sort of, but no, I'm really English. And you know, my mum's, and then it's whole, you know, what does your mum do? Is she half caste? You don't know, my mum's white. And then you get that. I'm always, you know, I got through it going, I'm brown by name and I'm brown by nature. But, you know, the only time I actually felt my color where I had to stand up for myself about it, apart from, you know, idiots being who they are, because, you know, that's all they are when people attack you because of your race or color or size or whatever it is. It's just, you can't, there's so many of them. That's a difficult sea to swim in. That's best to just get out, dry off, and be around people that make you feel good about who you are. And when I was on MTV, of course, doing the club MTV, it was a natural thing for me. I'm a dancer, so the natural thing for me to be in the club thing was because I knew about dance music. It had nothing to do that I was a Black girl. It had to, in fact, I wasn't even the first choice for club MTV. It was actually Kevin Seal, the male VJ, and for some reason he couldn't do it. So I was like, me, I'll do it because I love dance music. But then when MTV went through their groove and it actually changed, and they started to do reality TV and Yo MTV Raps, and they wanted me to go on these different things. And I'm like, that just seems so wrong for me, because one, I'm not Black American, but you want me to do this yo, what's up kind of thing. You think I can do that because it's because I'm this golden, fantastic color. But I couldn't do it. I mean, if anyone's ever heard me say, you know, yo, what's up? It's really bad. And it sounds like I'm taking the piss. And so I refused to do it. And so that's when it was, lights were on for me. And it's just like, you know what, it's time for me to move away and go somewhere where I want to be and where I'll be welcomed for my talent of just being able to, you know, on 3, 2, 1, be able to go hold it together until it's rap time. And so that's what I did. But I could see it happening. It was like, it's right in front of me. It was just like big Y-O, like hitting me in the face. I'm like, I'm not going to change. It's you. And by the way, I always felt, if I can't do it, you know, there's someone that can do it. So give them the job, give her the job. And also now I'm very conscious that if people come into my space and I'm able to hire, you know, a female instead of a male, that's exactly what I do.
Well done.
Because you know, it's not that I want to push the guys away. It's just, you know, we've still got a long way to go. And, you know, so we just got to keep on plodding on. And while you can do it, do it.
Ladies, I have one more question to ask Miss Christina. Judy, if you don't mind. And we did not, I mean, we've gone to 2:00. I can't believe how fast time is. I mean, so crazy. This has just been the most exceptional conversation, but I just need to get this one question to you both. Christine, love, what kind of gendered stereotypes do you feel are most commonly found in your industry? And have you experienced that yourself or not?
There are so many, and we could talk about this for a very long time, honestly. Being a decision maker in the business is very helpful. And that's something that Nicky touched on earlier. So when you have the opportunity to be in a decision maker position, for me, that was launching my own company. That was really helpful. The conversation is changing very quickly, which is very good. At the end of the day, the higher you rise in the ranks, the further up on the ladder you go, the more sexism you're going to experience. And we see that in sort of the old dog patriarchy ideology and mentality. At the end of the day, men have been taught for generations that they are the decision makers, and they're used to being the decision makers. So there's that. But at the same time, we're changing that. And I think it's really important. I know this isn't entirely answering your question, but I feel like the most important thing to say is it's really important for us as women because we're having to both learn and unlearn a variety of things all at once. It's important for us to remember that even though we've been raised to, in some instances, perhaps know our place or be polite, all of those things, and obviously we're all professionals here, it's important to remember, and something that's really served me well in my career over time is something I had to learn early on, was to be comfortable taking your rightful space, be comfortable using your voice professionally, be comfortable, obviously you have to sort of pick and choose your conversations and how you do things, but be comfortable taking your space because, men in high up positions are not going to just offer that over to you. So you have to be comfortable and be brave and say, okay, well, hold on a second. This is important and I need to speak up about this. And I deserve a seat at the table. I've earned it. I've worked hard for it. And so, I'm going to make my voice heard and I'm going to take that space. And so, it can be a scary thing to do for people who are just getting comfortable with that. But if I had one piece of advice for women, particularly in the entertainment industry, it's to step up and be comfortable taking your rightful space because you earned your seat at that table. Yeah.
That's beautiful advice. Judy, would love to hear your thoughts.
Yes, Christina, I think what you said really speaks to me actually, because that whole idea of taking space has been a challenge for me, just not even just in the workplace, just in general. I feel like I tend to feel like invisibility in a sense is actually my comfort zone in a lot of places, even if, like, for instance, after a concert, there's like a networking situation or reception and you have to be social, I tend to kind of like want to be in the corner, even if it was a performance that I was a part of or anything like that. So I tend to gravitate towards just kind of feeling like I'll let others speak. I'll let others, just take the attention, and I'm just going to listen and sort of be there and observe. But then there's times where I'll suddenly feel the urge to have something to say, and I have opinions, and I have, just a self-expression. And that's partly probably being a musician and artist is where that comes into place. Is maybe speaking hasn't always been a very comfortable. I guess I just never felt like my voice was important in a sense, or and it's like a lot of situations I've been in have been where I think I was silenced in a sense, or ignored or dismissed, and it was not just from the men; it was from all across the board. And I think there is a sense of just kind of now with a shift of like, there's more attention that is brought to this, and just kind of like allowing for more equality in general in the workplace, and just as women are coming forward and being more just able to express and given that platform, I'm now just, I think, being more aware of like reflecting and going, oh, those are the times in my past where I didn't even recognize, just things were happening because I was accepting it. And in a sense, I think because of the stereotypes and because it's been the way it was, I just accepted it and said, that's just the way it is. But it's not really the way it should be. And I have experience where, working with, men who weren't used to working with women. In that sense, I was able to understand, I think, after the situation, what was really happening. But in the midst of it, you just kind of go, why are you not allowing me to say something without having judgment or just kind of like assuming that, oh, I'm being emotional or whatever it is. And a lot of times in those situations, like communication is such an important thing for me to just kind of recognize and be just upfront about, and not overly emotional at all, but it comes across maybe as, oh, you're, just the fact of having an opinion makes you emotional, or, there's like a reason that is negative. And even if the approach is not at all like that. So I think that there's been times where I had to also recognize that men have been in a situation where they're not used to maybe having to deal with that. And so they don't almost have that dynamic in place. And so it's just all about kind of like working through it and understanding. But having said that, hopefully we're at a place where there's a little bit more of like that opportunity and just kind of awareness. And I think that it's just definitely something I myself am coming into being more comfortable and approaching, just like having an openness to like, even just kind of like allowing myself to not validate myself, but just kind of accept that like we all have something to contribute, and that, everyone has something that can learn from each other, and just all like the obvious stuff. But I think it's just like coming to a place where you like really are intentional about it and aware, and allowing it to be the situation. So.
Oh, Judy, you're making me want to take off my shiny boots and come and jump on your couch and come and hang out for a week.
Oh, well said. Well said.
Thank you. Your story. So beautiful what you just said. And Christine, because you opened this up, I would love to just a quick few seconds from everyone, just a piece of advice, just, kind of in this moment in time, and anyone who may be watching and is interested in getting into the fields that you're in, or just as a woman to woman, anything that you guys would like to share. I would love for us to just go around just briefly, fast, and I don't mean to take any more of your precious time. And I know we've gone over a little bit, but just really fast. Sarita?
Fix your inside first, and then it will affect your external. Even if it's 15 minutes a day, get that junk out of there, be friends with it, own it. There is no such thing as dark and light, but start with your inside, and it will show your environment as it could be.
Ardees?
One of the things I do every day is, with my coach's help, was to write the top 3 things I need to do that day, right? And then I do all my affirmations. But my number 1 on my list every day is dream big, be limitless, be joyful. And that really like gets me through my day, no matter what happens.
Nicky?
I just think it's very important to be present and to remember that other people's journey is not your journey. I'm first generation Caribbean, Latinx American, and there's no one like me in a lot of the spaces I am. And that's great, but this is my journey, and you should take agency over where you are and be present. Like sometimes we're always worried about the future and what's going to happen and what happened in the past, but there's such grateful moments that are really happening around us. And in order to take full advantage of it, affirmations, being aware of what's going on the inside, and really being present in the moment.
Judy?
Yes, I would say just agree. Like I agree with Nicky. Like just being present is such a big thing that I've been really intentional about. And I think just having had this conversation with all of you and just listening to you, just being able to like feel like you're not alone in a lot of the situations, and just being so inspired by strong and, you know, very confident, and like there's so much beauty in just like all of your individual qualities that you have. I see such you know, like even if there's a lot of similarities, I feel like there's just such distinct like characteristics with all of you, like your personalities. And so it's just so amazing to like, when you see that and you're just like a part of, like you're part of something. And it's like, if we could just, you know, I would love to just, you know, be a part of this community, you know, just moving forward and just feeling like we're, you know, whatever it is, it's like just kind of like knowing that you're in it together. It's just like that feeling is very like reassuring. And it's like, I'm already feeling just like, so like cliched, but like inspired by just being in the presence of you all and just listening today. And I just, yeah, I'm so thankful.
Sonia?
Sorry, I got so caught up listening. It was so good. So, okay, to really, so important is to really believe in your own voice and to trust your voice. And sometimes people aren't really sure. And I like to say a good indication that this is a dream, like your dream makes sense, all of this is right, is if it feels good in your heart. If it feels good in your heart, then you go for it. Then there's no question. Don't overthink. You know, don't be scared. Don't let that gut. No, that could be good. Be quiet. If it gets in your heart, it's good there. You got it.
So good. Christina?
Oh, I love that, Sonia, staying in your heart. And I would add to that also staying in your truth. You know, when you stay in truth, even if you're in the midst of a conversation, whether it be a difficult conversation or you're sort of exploring something you haven't explored yet, staying in your truth, staying in truth, you know, only good things can come from that. And I think the other piece of advice that I would give, something that was shared with me this year that really spoke to me, was to remember that we're all doing our part sort of on the bridge to the next place. And for people out there who might think, okay, well, these are entertainment people, and so they're, you know, working kind of in big ways and in big industries. The other thing to remember is, and we remember this in our personal lives as well, you know, even if you're just making a difference in one conversation, one-on-one, we're all playing our part in that bridge to the next place. And just doing your part in that conversation, it reverberates out. And so we're all being change makers in so many ways on a daily basis, big and small. And no one is more important or less important than the other. We're all doing it together. So, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and yes, and yes.
Yes.
And down to Judy Brown.
Yeah, I don't know. Self-care, I believe, is not self-indulgent. You know, I think if you feel good, then you have the ability to make those around you feel even greater. So I say love yourself, because that is infectious in itself. So that's how I feel. And after meeting all of you ladies here, love, it goes all around. Thank you so much for I mean really, Consuelo, this is amazing to have a godsend. I mean, I sit here by myself, not by myself, I have my husband, but you know, just hearing the voices of other ladies, it's just been music to my ears. So thank you so much. Thank you for the song. It's great.
Ladies, I can never thank you enough. Really, this has been so inspirational. It just, time flew by. I'm so sorry that we've gone over, but it has meant everything, and you've really helped to impact my life over here, and I know you've impacted so many others. And thank you for being your extraordinary selves, and lessons that I think that we can all learn, right? For anyone who wants more information about SohoMuse, please go to www.sohomuse.com. And we are a wonderful creative platform. So please come and join our wonderful community. And we can't wait for the next conversation. And thank you again so much for your time. It's really been such a blessing today.
Thank you so much. And yo.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Bye now. Thank you.
Bye, Nicky. Bye, Nicky. Ciao.
Bye, guys. So nice to meet you all.
Hi, lovely ladies.
I'm going to be the last to leave the party.
Oh, that's all right.
I'm like, can we just stick around and just talk amongst ourselves for a little bit?
I was like, Nicky, I bought a wardrobe change just in case.
Oh my gosh, I love that blazer.
Help me here. Help me. Right, ladies, I've got to go. Because in the midst of all
Bye,
this,
everyone.
I actually have to go to dinner for my husband.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.